You've built an app and have successfully deployed it to Azure from your local machine. Awesome. Good work. Now, we know we want to make this app even more awesome. Hence, we need a CI/CD pipeline. I have an idea. Can we use an AI coding agent to help us build this pipeline? And how easy is it? Well, let's find out. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kirk. Now, as I mentioned, we are going to build a CI/CD pipeline to deploy an app to Azure. We've already done this before, and we did it in other tutorials for an AI chatbot, but it doesn't really matter what we're deploying. You don't have to watch those tutorials, but I will kind of go over what we've done that before. We've taken our app, we've deployed it to an Azure Container Registry, and then from there, we deployed it to a serverless container app all in Azure. We did that locally. Now, for our CI/CD pipeline, I'm going to pick GitHub Actions workflows. I like GitHub Actions. I've used Azure DevOps before in the Azure environments, but now kind of sticking to GitHub Actions. And I thought, hey, why don't we use an AI coding agent to help us? And nowadays, I'm always using AI coding agents to help me automate processes, to scaffold, to try to help me explain code, and obviously fix bugs and make sure my code is actually correct. So why don't we do that? So let's jump right into it. Okay, we are back, and we are going to create a CI/CD pipeline to deploy an app using GitHub Actions. Now, we created an app before in some of the other tutorials. We created a chatbot, and we actually built it locally, and we deployed it to Azure Container Instance. We did all the steps. You can go back and look at that, but you don't have to. I'm going to try to explain, well, I will explain how we did that right now. Okay, here we are. And as I said, we built some scripts here to build locally, build a container, and to deploy it to Container Registry in Azure Container Registry. And then from there, we deployed it to container instance, a serverless container instance. Now, I'm going to do this a little differently. This is pretty much how I work in my day-to-day life. I use agentic coding tools. I use Claude. So I'm actually going to run Claude here. And I mean, I love these tools now. I think everyone as a developer uses these tools, but pretty much I use it to explain code to me, to scaffold up work, to verify my work, and to help me fix bugs. But of course, you really have to know what you're doing. Like this whole vibe coding thing that's going on now. I'm not getting into that, but I'm going to show you how I actually use this. So here, I've launched it. I've launched Claude, and I'm just going to ask it to say, tell me what the scripts build image.sh and deploy reg.sh do. And it's going to tell me. Now, hopefully it just tells me what I just told you. But let's see what it says. Okay, so script builds and pushes a Docker image. So that's the build image, which we did in another tutorial. It logs into Azure Container Registry, builds a Docker image locally using Docker buildx. Remember, we set the platform to target Linux and gave it a tag and pushed it to Azure Container Registry. Okay, pretty straightforward. So that's what we're gonna also do in our CI/CD action, our GitHub action. Deploy reg actually takes this, containerize, yeah, it says containerize reg application to Azure Container Instances. Pretty much what I said. We set up the log analytics workspace. We did all the managed identity work. Remember, we had everything in Azure Key Vault. Yeah, all the environment variables. and then deployed it. Let me just show you that too. So we have everything in Azure, our container instance, AI chat Kirk, which I have it up here. Hello. Hello, how can I assist you today? And remember in here, let's just go in here and look at this. We have our container instance loaded up here, and remember we have logs here. It's getting back some info here. Running on port 80. We're using managed identity. I turned off Azure Search right now, just because that costs money to run. So that's not what we're focused on right now. We have oh yeah, I ran this once and I was testing it. I had to actually set up the managed identity again because I deleted my old users. But of course I fixed that as you just saw, or else we would have gotten an error saying the managed identity user could not hit our Azure AI Foundry instances. So yeah, this app is going out and using those models, GPT-4o, to answer these questions, and also using text embedding, and we use that by Azure, by managed identity, I should say. Okay, so that's step one, just going over what I've already done before. Okay, back to our IDE here and to Claude. Now that we have this, so like I said, we're going to use GitHub Actions, and as you know, or maybe you don't know, but GitHub Actions creates YAML files. This is my code repo. It's going to be added to the code repo. There's actually one here already. I'm going to get rid of this one. Where is it? In workflows, Azure Dev. This is what they had before. I'm going to do this differently. Have this trigger when we actually push code to our main branch and do what I've already outlined in those bash scripts that I wrote. So let's go back to our agent here. Say, I want to create a new GitHub agent to do what I've done in build image sh and deploy reg.sh. Not GitHub agent, I should say GitHub action. And let's give it a name. Call it deploy dev.yml. I think that's good. Let's try this. So it's creating that GitHub Actions workflow. I should have said workflow. It's looking at that, and let's just see what it does. And now I'll go through the steps. But this, again, this is how I work. Like I tried in Claude Code to do some scaffolding, try to explain things to me, but you really need to know what it's actually doing. So let's see. So yeah, so it's going to go in here. It's going to try to create this deploy dev. So that's fine because we don't like it. We don't like it. And let's give it permission to do that. Okay, so here it is. Let's see what it says. Okay, I've loaded up what the Claude Code just built up for me, and it looks pretty good. Actually, let me just get rid of this file right now, just so I don't confuse myself here. But here it is. It created deploy dev. It says we need to create these in our GitHub repo, these variables here. Okay, let's look at this. So as I said, we can uncomment this. Yes. So right now we're going to dispatch it. I'll go back and change this after. The GitHub Actions, as you know, it gives it a name, deploy dev environment, and we have our jobs here. The environment variables, it coded it all. It added all this. I'm gonna try to change this, and same with the login. I have another way to do this, but let's look at this. So now it's going to go in. Of course, it's going to build our Docker image. It's going to log into Azure Container Registry. How is it doing that? Yeah, so Azure Container name, it's going to run to log in. Yes, by whoever you're logged in already here, which we have to set up. We're going to try this. Remember, we have our workspace. We're just getting our workspace IDs and keys, our manage identity, and deleting the old container instance, because every time we build this and deploy, we're just going to delete the other one and redeploy it with all these variables, which I've explained in the other video, running in production, getting those. Like, it's just going to create the container instance. We created that user so we can allow that user to pull in the container instance from the container registry. And all this, key vault. So we're gonna have to look at this. Okay, but let's look at this. Okay, so let's just ask Claude. I prefer to have my variables res group not in the YAML file. Change that. Okay, what's it doing here? Okay, there it goes. Okay, this is better. I'm going to show this to you as well. So let's go ahead and make that change. Great. So here we have it. We have these variables. I know what I want to do here with logging in. Let's just do one thing here. I have this, and I'm going to do this. And I'm going to paste this in. And yeah, I'm just going to have, so we have our secrets. So did it have this as variables? I didn't undo. Yeah, variables. So we're going to have it as a secret in our GitHub. We're going to have, so we're going to log in first using Azure credentials, which I'm going to set up right now. And let's just try all this, but let's set up that user right now. Okay, so here is the important step. As I said, we got to create a user and have the Azure credentials. So we're going to create a service principal, and I have some code here. So this is what it's going to do. Use the Azure command line to create a service principal. We're going to give it the role of contributor. We're going to give it a name as GitHub Action Service Principal. And the scope will be on our resource group, and that's it. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so we got back all this data. And now we got that user. And now we're going to go into our GitHub here. So this is, as I said, these are workflows. And then we go into settings. We go into our secrets and variables. There we go, GitHub Actions. And now, yeah, we have secrets and variables. And this needs to be a repository secret. Yes, new repository secret. Yeah, Azure credentials. Okay, so it says Azure credentials. Azure, yeah, it's already here. And I'm taking all that this outputted from our service principal, adding that. So that's that. Now, let's start pushing this code to our GitHub repo and see what happens. Okay, one other thing I've done here is I've added the variables in GitHub Actions here as well into the settings. These, of course, this is what I asked it to do. I didn't want these hard-coded. In our YAML file here, our steps, we have resource groups, all these variables, and this is, again, the Claude code knew to set this up based on my bash scripts here. So it's pretty much doing the same thing. So we have those done. Great. So let me just look at this, git status. I'm going to check in just this one file, stage this, new Azure dev GitHub action. Okay, so I'm going to do this, commit and push, and let's see what happens here. Okay, I've just flipped over to my repo here, and we can see in GitHub, just deployed it. So now we have in the workflows this new deploy dev. Everything that I've just showed you. So this is here. Now we go into actions. Let's go ahead and run this. Yes, here's this. Let's go ahead and run this from our main branch. Let's see what happens. I don't expect this to work. Well, I know it won't work because I know we have a bit more to do. But let's see how far it gets, and let's just debug. We can watch it here. Is it going to be able to log in? Okay, so it logged in. Now it is building the image. Remember this step? We are building our Docker image. Nothing's changed here. Using our Docker file that we did in the other tutorial. Azure Container Registry, it looks like it's logged in there. Pushing the Docker image. Is this going to work? We will find out. Actually, this is build the Docker image and push it. Okay, here we are, and it actually got pretty far. So deploy to Azure Container Instances, we have forbidden, RBAC forbidden errors, which is what I expected. What that means is the service principal that I created does not have access to the key vault, which was created as well, or the one we already had. So we need to fix that. So let's go here. Okay, so here's the command. What this is going to do, it's going to give that user that we created earlier, the service principal, the client ID here, we are going to give it the role of key vault secrets user to our key vault. So that way it can read in the secrets. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so there it is. Now let's try this again. Okay, so this did not work last time. Let's go here. Okay, yes, we know. As I said, let's just rerun all jobs. And let's see what it does here. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm just gonna pause this and come back and see what happens. There it goes. So it got past Git manage identity and Azure Container Instances. Okay, these errors, remember, we didn't even set these variables in our key vault. We had these errors before. We're just ignoring these, and so it's just not setting these variables in our container app, which is fine. It just means we're not using AI search, which is what we thought. So got past there, display URL, and yeah, this is built. There we go. We're good. Let's actually look at it. Let's go into, okay, I just showed you my key vault. I had to go there. Container instance, AI chat. Container, it started at 526, it's 528. Yep, that's good. Let's get the URL. I already have it up here, but let's load it again and see if this loads. Hello, how are you? Okay, that's great. It looks like it's running. Tell me about the solar system. Okay, so yeah, it's up and running. So we have our GitHub Actions in place. Remember that one change I also want to do? Where is our file? Yeah, let's uncomment this. Okay, let's go here and let's uncomment this line here. The YAML files, I always forget about aligning this stuff. I think it has to be that. I don't know. Well, I do know. There we go. Let's just, sometimes I get in there. But let's go here. Stage change. Trigger workflow on check on main branch. Okay, let's just go git status, git push. So I didn't push it. Okay. Now let's go back to my code here. Go in the actions. And it triggered. Great. So this should be working. Do you believe me? Maybe I should change the name somewhere. And let's try that, actually, just so you believe me. Okay, one last change. Just this is like the icing of the cake, just to show you that this is working properly. I'm just going to change something in the front end. A good test. I'm just going to change this message here. How can I help you today? And I'm going to change it to hello, how can I help you today? And that should, of course, build the front end and just deploy if I check everything into the main branch. So let's go ahead and do that. Change front end message. Commit and push. There it goes. Now in our GitHub repo. And there it goes. So give me a second. I'll come back to this in a second and we'll load it up. And we should be good. And remember the front end, just for a refresher, let's look in our Docker file. So the front end here, in our Docker file, the front end code is here, and then it just builds it using pnpm, all of our React components, just to output a JavaScript file. And so that should be done by when we're building the image. Remember, we're building the Docker image inside our GitHub action, and then it should deploy that container to our container instance. Let's see. There it goes. There, it just finished, which is great. Now let's reload this and see if we get our new message. There it is. Hello, how can I help you today? Great, we're good. So maybe we just need a little recap. I used Claude code to create our file, our YAML, our deploy dev environment, GitHub action workflow. And this triggers on the main branch now. I went and I told Claude Code that I don't want these variables hard-coded. Set that up in our variables in GitHub. I changed the login. I showed you that. And then I had to go into the service principal, how to create a service principal, and show you what roles I need to set on that. Contributor and access to the key vault. And that was it. So the Claude Code set up all these steps for me. Building the Docker image, log into Azure Container Registry, push that image to the container registry. We'll build it and push it. And getting these variables, getting our manage identity user, deleting the old container instance, and deploying a new container instance. And that's it. Pretty straightforward. I know I talked here for a long time, But if you follow this, and you should be good. You should have no problems. So I hope this is helpful, and until next time. All right, that's it for this tutorial on developing a CI/CD pipeline with the help of an AI coding agent. See, AI coding agents really do help us, and it really does make the process a lot easier. But you still have to know what you're doing. Hence, you should watch these tutorials and watch some of my other videos. And you should subscribe because I'll be creating more awesome tutorials in the future. So don't miss out. And until then, I'll see you next time.